Sean McDermott is exactly what the Cleveland Browns need their next head coach. We'll talk about it coming up in the Locked On Browns podcast.
You are Locked On Browns, your daily Cleveland Browns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Dog Pound? I'm Spencer German, your host of the Locked On Browns podcast, and proudly covering your Cleveland Browns each and every single day in the land and on the road. The Bills' trash is another team's treasure, and that team should be the Cleveland Browns. Why it's starting to feel like Jim Schwartz may just sort of be the backup plan at head coach, which is not a good way to make this decision. And no, I've seen the conversations on social media. I'm not trading for CJ Stroud. I do want to thank you for being part of the Locked On Browns podcast, being in every day with the Locked On Browns podcast, making us your first listen every single day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. And that is all thanks to you. So we got the news yesterday. Sean McDermott was fired. I think it was somewhat surprising. I'm from Western New York, admittedly, used to cover the Buffalo Bills, so I have some connections in that circle where I had heard that, you know, it at least seemed like it was possible that if they didn't make a deep playoff run or if they didn't get to the Super Bowl or something, that this could be on the table for the Bills, that they would maybe make a change of some sort. But I did think, like, watching that game unfold on Saturday, the way it all went down, the controversial interception catch call with Brandon Cooks, I didn't think that it was going to amount to Sean McDermott sort of becoming the person that gets blamed for that. I didn't watch that game and think that it was the coaching that was the issue. Now, he's had his issues in the playoffs as a coach, game management situations, the 13-second game everyone points to, like how he handled the kickoff in that one. I understand that. But I didn't watch that game Saturday feeling like it was on Sean McDermott. And so in some ways, I kind of thought he had been exonerated by bad officiating and that they'd stick with him. And I think you saw from the responses and the reactions on Monday from players that he coached and some even the fan base to a degree, that there was a relative level of surprise and shock that he sort of had to bite the bullet and become the person blamed for the team's failures. And on some level, I get it. Like, it's the same thing we've talked about with the Steelers, with the Ravens. Eventually, it just kind of becomes time, right? And the success isn't there. You're not getting it done in the postseason. You have Josh Allen at quarterback, and you've made it 7 trips to the postseason and never made it to the Super Bowl once. I can understand or wrap my head around that. There seems like there's some shock that Brandon Beane wasn't also let go, which is very, mirrors in a way the Browns situation where Andrew Berry gets to stick behind and choose the next coach. That's for Locked On. That's for my my colleagues over at Locked On Bills and Joe Marino to sort of sort through and talk about with their fan base. But as specific to McDermott, though, listen, I think he's done a tremendous job, or did a tremendous job in Buffalo over the years from when he got there in 2017 on, of turning that organization into a consistent winner. And that is, I think, the biggest thing the Browns need right now, right? Like, if you think about, yes, the understanding that, again, there's been some shortcomings with him at times. If you understand where the Bills were before he got there, and you understand where they are now, the bar that he basically became like a victim of his own success, because he set such a high bar at this point for the organization that once he wasn't reaching that bar, it was understandable that it was maybe time for a change, to find somebody who can get you over that hump and get you to that next level, because he wasn't there. He wasn't getting that done. And I'm not saying like you don't want a coach here in Cleveland that can get you to that next level and as quickly as possible, but what McDermott does give you is the blueprint for building a consistent winner that's a contender in the AFC, that can actually get you into the Super Bowl conversation year over year. And part of that does require getting a quarterback. I understand that. Like everyone's going to point and say his success is wrapped up in the coattails of Josh Allen. But I do want to remind people, though, that he was there before Josh Allen. He got there a year before him, and they made the playoffs that first year, ended like the 20-year playoff, the 18, 19-year playoff drought, 17 years. I can't remember off the top of my head exactly what it was, but a nearly 20-year playoff drought, year one without Josh Allen there. And then the first couple of years of Josh Allen, if you remember, were a little rough. Like, nobody knew if he was going to pan out. He was a little rougher on the edges. It took that third year, things really clicked, but they made the playoffs in year two with Josh Allen just being kind of a meddling young quarterback who threw like 20 touchdowns and 10 picks and was, not lighting it up the way he does now and winning MVPs. And so it was the foundation that McDermott laid and built that allowed the Bills to become what they become and support, frankly, a Josh Allen. And that's the other thing that I take away from the Josh Allen component of this. He's proven that he has the temperament and the patience to work with a young quarterback and give them time to develop into what you hope is at some point a franchise quarterback for you. That's what he proved in his time in Buffalo working alongside Josh Allen. Even if Josh Allen gets most of the credit for the successes on the field and in the playoffs and whatever, fine, maybe I'll give you that one. But he provided the support system for that young quarterback to develop, a guy that some didn't think was ever going to pan out because he was just too raw. That means something. And the hope here in Cleveland is that you also at some point find that franchise quarterback and have the right people in place to support him and help him become that franchise guy. Maybe he's already here in Shedeur Sanders and you think that you just need the right coach to do it now, if that's how you feel. But again, the track record is there. There's proof in the pudding of what he built in Buffalo. And again, just look no further than the way players are talking about his departure and how shocked they are, and people tweeting or posting on Instagram like, shake my head because they're disappointed that this happened. He left a true mark on that city, on that team, on that organization, on the players, and that's the type of guy that you need. Stefanski was on the right track when he first got here, I think, of building a new culture and establishing a new culture in Cleveland. McDermott can take what Stefanski started, build upon it, take it to the next level. And even if that level isn't the Super Bowl quite yet, just to get in the conversation and be in the club is a huge step for this organization. It's where the bar should be right now as they're sort of going through this rebuild. And in a way, if those of you who listen to my show, maybe listen to my guy Danny Cunningham over at Locked On Cavs as well, and you know who JB Bickerstaff is, maybe Sean McDermott becomes your JB Bickerstaff, where he's good enough to get you built back up to a contender, but he might not be the guy that gets you to the promised land. And that's okay. Sometimes those coaches are out there. But right now the Browns need to get to the contending piece. They need to get to the consistent winning piece. And McDermott did that in a place that was known as a perennial loser and turned them now into one of the premier organizations in football that is constantly in the Super Bowl conversation. That's not for nothing, whether he had a quarterback or not. I give him a lot of credit for that. It's exactly what the Browns need right now. So the same way that I was banging the table for John Harbaugh and saying culture builder, proven, go get this guy, I feel very similarly about Sean McDermott. We know where the stages are of their process right now. In-person interviews, they have one with Jim Schwartz on Monday. Tuesday is all about Todd Monken. Wednesday's supposed to be Mike McDaniel. So they're going through this process of in-person interviews with these guys, second interviews with these guys. They got 6 guys on the list. Sean McDermott needs to be 7th. He needs to be somebody that they get in this building and try to have a conversation with. They did have interest in Sean McDermott back in 2016 when they decided to hire Hugh Jackson. What a world how different things could have been if they had just hired Sean McDermott back then instead of Hugh Jackson. You never know. But there was interest there before. I think there needs to be interest again. Sean McDermott is the new white whale of this coaching situation, other than Mike Tomlin, who is not really viable because I don't think Mike Tomlin is coaching next year from all indications. But aside from that, like, Sean McDermott is the guy that the Browns could use right now to turn their franchise around. And I think they'd be silly not to at least add him to this list and have conversations with him about potentially being the next Cleveland Browns head coach. He's now number 1 on my list. I can tell you that right now. And I'd be thrilled if they could go get a guy like Sean McDermott. Speaking of the coaching search, as I mentioned, Jim Schwartz had his in-person interview on Monday. I'll say this, though. The Jim Schwartz part of this feels like it's just becoming, well, he's the fallback plan, he's the backup option, and that's no way to choose a head coach. We'll talk about it coming up on the Locked On Browns podcast. If you've ever hired someone who looked good on paper but wasn't the right fit, you know how important that is. When you want candidates who truly match what you're looking for, trust Indeed sponsored jobs. Hiring Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed's sponsored jobs puts your post at the top of the page and helps you reach the right candidates faster. Instead of struggling to get your job post seen, Indeed sponsored jobs helps you listen to standout candidates and reach quality candidates faster. Sponsored jobs boost your post to put the people who are the best match for your role and makes a real difference. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs directly on Indeed are 90% more likely to report a hire than non-sponsored jobs. How about that? Spend more time interviewing candidates who check all the boxes and less with the stress, time, and results using Indeed sponsored jobs. Listeners of our show get a $75 sponsored job credit to help give your job premium placement it deserves at Indeed sponsor or Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL. Again, just head to Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL right now and support the show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, do it the right way with Indeed. What if sports were traded like markets? Now, you can put your sports IQ to work in real time with Robinhood prediction markets. It's not you against the house anymore. It's you participating in a live market. You can buy or sell your positions live all game long. Use your sports knowledge in the moments that matter. Robinhood prediction markets changes the game. It's people moving the action. So when the momentum shifts, you can move with it. I always knew the game, but never had a dynamic way to apply that knowledge. Now I can actually take part live in a market powered by the people. You're no longer just a spectator. Play by play, you decide. Trade every play with Robinhood now, available across the U.S. Download the Robinhood app to begin. Futures and cleared swaps trading involves risk and is not appropriate for everyone. Event contracts are offered by Robinhood Derivatives, LLC, a registered futures commission merchant and swap firm. So as we continue to navigate the coaching search situation and everything going on with it as far as the Cleveland Browns are concerned, we know Jim Schwartz was the first up for an in-person interview. He had his on Monday. And Schwartz has long been sort of linked to this job since it became open, since they fired Kevin Stefanski. He obviously has the ties to the organization because he's been here for several years. There's a lot of stability and sort of continuity that comes with potentially making him the candidate. But the more and more I read into this, the more and more I hear about this, the more and more information we get about this situation, the more it kind of feels like Jim Schwartz is just like the safety net candidate that, like, if all else fails, if they strike out on XYZ guys that they think are their top options, their top candidates, that Schwartz is kind of the guy you turn to and say, well, hey, we didn't get a Grant Udinski. We didn't get a Nate Scheelhaus. We didn't get this guy. We didn't get that guy. We're turning to you. Like, and if that's the case, he can't be the guy. If that's the case, he can't be the guy that you hire. At least not as a head coach. I'm not saying you don't try to keep him around, but you can't hire him to be your head coach if that's the sort of vibe around Jim Schwartz, is just that he is kind of he's your second choice. It's like having that friend of the opposite gender, like that you never were willing to date them, but you knew they were always there for you when you were going through the ups and downs of your other relationships and follies of relationships. Well, hey, I got you here all the time. And it's like the best friend falling in love with the best friend that for years they kind of just ignored the feelings that were there. And like, yeah, you know what? You're safe. You're here. I'll go to you. I'll give this thing a shot. No, like, you've been friend zoned for years. And that's what this kind of feels like. You can't go into a head coaching search and end up just hiring a guy because he was the fallback plan and everything else kind of failed. I'm not saying like you don't have like number one candidate, number two candidate, number three candidate. But if the entire vibe around Jim Schwartz was just, well, hey, we're going to give him the opportunity here because we like him, and we feel like he's done a good job in this league coaching before. You know what? He'll be our backup plan because we got him in house already. Like, that's not the right approach to have. If he's your second candidate and one says no, I can understand that. But this can't be a situation where you just turn to Jim Schwartz to sort of save the day because you missed out on however many guys in front of him or whatever, or you think that like he's just going to be there waiting with open arms when you offer the job to other guys and they say no. Like, if that's the approach that they're taking, that's no way to choose a coach. You need to have some conviction. You need to have some belief and passion about the person that you're choosing to lead this organization. The passion that Jimmy Haslam spoke about dysfunction in the organization, or I guess dispelled this dysfunction in the organization when he had that press conference the day Kevin Stefanski was fired. That's the type of passion you need when you choose your next head coach. You need to be able to talk about him in that sort of light, in that sort of way, and speak in a vibrant tone about like who you're hiring and why you're excited about this person coming in and leading the organization. It shouldn't just be, well, hey, Jim was here and we felt like, if all else failed, he could lead our organization moving forward and be the right choice. Like, no, if you're going to choose Jim, you have to do it because you feel Jim is truly the best option of this group and that he's the right leader to take this team into the next era of football that's to come here in Cleveland. Because if you do it halfway, if it's a half-baked hire here and you're just giving the job to Jim Schwartz because it's the safe hire, like, that is just setting yourself up for failure as an organization. That's setting him up for failure. And you're going to be doing this again in a year. You're going to be hiring another coach a year from now, or at least maybe being generous, like 2 years from now. Like, that's no way to choose a head coach, is by just kind of lethargically going through this process and knowing, well, hey, we got Jim there if everything else fails. No, if you feel strongly about different candidates, you do what you can to make one of those other candidates the guy. You don't just choose Jim Schwartz because he's Jim Schwartz and he's here and you feel good about him and you there's some stability and he knows how to run the defense and all those different things. Like, if those are the reasons you're hiring him from the beginning because you feel strongly about him, great. But if you're not sold on those things and you like other guys better, it can't just be well, he's our fallback plan. That doesn't work in this league. It's not the way to go about this type of thing. This is too important a decision for the organization to choose their next leader on the field to just kind of nonchalantly choose the guy that you think is like provides comfort for you because he's already here. He knows the building, he knows the players, all those different things. Like it's not a way to do this. So if it's true, and I know there's been like it's been reported and talked about that they've asked Jim about some of the other candidates on the list or like other guys he'd like to work with in terms of like if he wasn't the head coach, I believe. And if that's what's happening here, I'm not saying those conversations shouldn't happen in an interview process. I get it, because there is a world where he stays on as defensive coordinator, and maybe there's certain guys he thinks he'd work better with than not. But at the same time, like that can be a little awkward. I get that, and I think that only speaks to if you end up choosing Jim, then like it might not be the guy you actually wanted, and you're just kind of doing it to do it. I understand why you have to have those conversations. I think Jim certainly understands that as well. I've talked already at length about the idea that, like, especially if it's one of these young up and coming coordinators like a Grant Udinski or a Nate Scheelhaus, that if they're trying to build out a staff, maybe they do take some comfort in, hey, keeping Jim on, who knows the building, and I can sort of just set and forget my defense. Maybe that's appealing to them. I can certainly subscribe to that, and so maybe they would keep him around. But this can't be just like well, we've missed out on everybody else, so let's give the job to Jim thing. Like, it's either Jim's on board with, hey, I'm good with one of these other guys getting the job and I'll stick around as DC, or he's the guy for the job because he's the guy for the job, and you felt that way from the beginning, and you felt strongly about it and through the interview process and all those different things. But it can't be sort of a half-baked decision here where it just becomes he's the fallback plan and he's the only option we have because all else failed. That's not going to work. And you're going to be right back doing this again, maybe a year from now. With all that said, we know the Browns are still also, as they look for a head coach, a quarterback as well. And there was one idea that popped up during divisional weekend that I am not going to support. Can't trade for CJ Stroud for a number of reasons, and I'll explain coming up next in the Locked On Browns podcast. We've reached conference championship week, and FanDuel is officially in playoff mode. Every game day during the NFL playoffs, FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get in on the action, because right now, every NFL playoff game day, FanDuel users get a profit boost pack waiting for them inside the app. Each game day, you'll see a pack loaded with multiple profit boosts that you can apply to the bets that you like the most. Open your profit boost pack first thing on game day and see what boosts you want to apply. The boost lets you lean into your game day instincts, whether you're backing momentum, defense, quarterback play, or coaching. Listen, it's conference championship weekend. We know what that means. You're going to have two matchups of high stakes action and two games that theoretically should be somewhat close. The Patriots going on the road, 5.5-point favorites, but they got to go to Denver. And Jarrett Stidham is not going to lay down. Plus, you got the Rams and Seahawks, a three-peat, a third matchup between those two teams this year, which should provide a great backdrop to set the stage for the big game after that. But in the meantime, you're going to want to play those games. You're going to want to make the action more fun by being involved via FanDuel this coming Sunday. Every play feels bigger. The boosts make your bets feel that way too. You make your picks, apply those profit boosts, and go after even bigger payouts while the playoffs keep rolling. Visit FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab a profit boost pack every NFL game day. Today's episode is also brought to you by Drip Drop. Kicking off your year feeling good is a goal, right? And honestly, hydration is the easiest win. When I stay on top of it, my energy, focus, and mood are all leveled up. But let's be real, plain water just doesn't cut it. Especially when you're grinding through long days, hitting the gym, or just trying to stay consistent with your health goals. That's where Drip Drop comes in. Doctor-developed, proven fast hydration to help your body and mind work better. Think clearer, focus, better energy, elevated mood, even that fresh skin glow. I love that it uses precise ratio of electrolytes and glucose for rapid absorption, delivering 3 times the electrolytes and half the sugar of leading sports drinks. Listen, you can probably tell my voice. I've been sick this week. Drip Drop has been my go-to right now as I felt sick, on top of the cough drops and everything else, of course. But I've been drinking water with the Drip Drop to keep myself hydrated. Needed to make sure I kept my energy levels as high as I could throughout this ordeal, and I'm starting to turn that corner and feel a lot better. Right now, Drip Drop is offering my listeners 20% off your first order. Go to dripdrop.com and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL. That's dripdrop.com, promo code LOCKEDONNFL for 20% off. Stock up now at dripdrop.com and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL. Do want to remind you to be part of our Everydayer Club. You already live your team every day. Now take it up a notch. If you ever miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is built for you. Get Locked On Browns ad-free, plus a members-only Discord access and more. Just go to lockedonbrowns.supercast.com, and you can also check out the link in the show notes to learn more. Listen, I saw the commentary during that Patriots-Texans game over the weekend about CJ Stroud maybe being on the outs in Houston, and then maybe having to decide, the Texans maybe having to decide what they're going to do at the quarterback position. And so I think it's a fair point that there's been some struggles there the last couple of years, and it might be time for the Texans to start thinking about where they're headed in that direction as far as the quarterback position is concerned. Now, that said, if trading him is on the table, that's something Houston's exploring. I'm out if I'm the Browns. I'm out. And there's a couple reasons here. I think, A, the struggles for CJ Stroud are starting to become alarming. Like, I thought last year it was kind of just a sophomore slump situation. His rookie year was phenomenal. Undisputably incredible. And he deserves a lot of credit for that rookie year, but he has regressed, and I think it didn't help that Houston's offensive line, I think, took a step back this year as well. Like, there's some problems that they also have to fix, but, you know, he's got weapons galore, and I know a lot of them got hurt, especially in the playoffs or during this playoff run, But yes, like the regression is noticeable with CJ Stroud. And that's the first thing that sort of concerns me is if I'm trading for CJ Stroud, it's a little bit of a project here. And by the way, you see the Ohio State stuff behind me on the shelf. I'm an Ohio State fan, yes. So I have faith that CJ Stroud can turn it around and be okay. I think that maybe a fresh start could be good for him. He could sort of be of that ilk of a Sam Darnold or a Geno Smith who struggles somewhere. Struggles somewhere, but lands on their feet somewhere else. Better situation, right coach, and is able to stabilize their career in some capacity. I think there's a world where that happens for CJ, and he can be okay in this league and still be a solid quarterback in this league. I don't know even if Houston's going to just give up on him quite yet because they did invest a first-round pick in him, although they're getting close to that window where you guys start talking about an extension. So I think next year is going to be sort of a make-it-or-break-it year for C.J. Stroud in Houston as far as his time in Houston is concerned, and we'll have to see what kind of happens after that. But as far as Houston is concerned, like that's going to be a make-it-or-break-it year if they do stand by him. But if they are willing to trade him, I understand like a fresh start might be the right thing for him. But listen, like the Browns already went down this road with the Houston Texans, right? Like there's still plenty of PTSD from the fan base over trading 3 firsts for Deshaun Watson. I'm not saying it's going to take 3 firsts to land CJ Stroud. He certainly isn't worth that at this juncture. Deshaun Watson at that time was still believed to be a top 5 quarterback in football because he had proven he had been a top 5 quarterback in football previously. But still, like it's the idea that your history is repeating itself. You're giving up some sort of draft capital to go get this project of a quarterback or this hope and a prayer of a quarterback to try and revive his career here in Cleveland and be the place that he sort of stabilizes things. It's just not worth it to me. Like if it's just money you're throwing around and you're like go get a Malik Willis, for example, or you trade for like Mac Jones for a minimal amount of draft capital or whatever that deal would sort of look like, I can wrap my head around that. But I don't think you need to chase like the big fish at this point and try to be the place where he, comes and revives his career by giving up, more valuable assets in that way. And frankly, like the Browns already tried to jump the line, right? Like they learned. My hope is that this organization learned its lesson that you can't jump the line when it comes to finding a quarterback. You can't go out and trade for a guy and give up a bunch of draft capital for a guy because you think like this is going to put us over the top. Like the best quarterbacks aren't usually available in trades like that. It's a rare thing. And so I understand why they tried it, but it backfired. It blew up in your face horribly. And you're still living with the repercussions of that because he still is on the roster. You can't then like let history repeat itself and go try to do that again with a former first round pick, first overall pick, and think that like you've now got it made in the shade and this time we'll get it right. Like, no, you tried this, it didn't work. Don't do it again. Just don't waste your time doing this again. Like you can't skip the line, you can't jump the line when it comes to developing a quarterback. At the end of the day, like the best quarterbacks in this league tend to be guys that you draft and you develop in your organization. And then I think there's a middle ground, which I talked about the other day, like the parameters on what makes a good quarterback or a winning quarterback, I think have changed. You don't need like the top 2 to 3 guys to just win everything anymore. You can win with a guy that like fits a system and can just play well in it. Look what Sam Darnold's doing. He's got his team on the brink of a Super Bowl. I think there's other examples around the league of quarterbacks. I brought up Geno Smith and like the successes that he had. Like you can win with certain guys and have success with certain guys. It might be capped, but you got to make the most of those things. And I think there's also like somebody like Bo Nix, I think like fits a system perfectly. I don't know that he's like the best quarterback in the NFL, but he fits a system perfectly and he's had a lot of success, and he, before he broke his ankle, got his team on the brink of a Super Bowl. So there's reasons why this is just a bad idea, and the Browns should not be trying to cut the line to find their quarterback again. They tried that already. We saw what happened. It's twofold where Stroud struggles aren't enticing enough for me to even want to pull the trigger on whatever it's going to take to get him, but also the fact that like the Browns aren't really in a place to be like, you know what, we're going to revive a guy's career and bring him here. You need to find your quarterback. Like Whatever that looks like, you need to find your guy for the future. And I think it probably looks like drafting and developing a guy, which they're trying to do right now with somebody like Shador Sanders, for example. We'll see if the new coach is on board with that. But I don't need to see this team sink more draft assets into making a trade because they think it's going to be a big splash with the Houston Texans, bringing CJ Stroud here with some of the struggles that he has, and trying to then find their answer at quarterback that way. Do it the right way. If you need to bridge the gap with a veteran or something, I get that. But getting Stroud isn't about bridging it with a veteran. Getting Stroud is about, like, we think we're the place where he can thrive and get back to what he was his rookie year. And I just don't know if the Browns are in a place to do that. And I don't think they should sink the assets into a trade that would have required to get him to try and attempt to do it. PTSD is real in that way because we've seen this story before. And again, the moral of it is you can't try to skip. You can't skip ahead of anybody in line when it comes to trying to find a quarterback. You got to do it a certain way. Another episode down with you, Dog Pound. And if you like what you heard, hit that subscribe button. Make Locked On Browns your first listen every day, wherever you get your podcasts, and the Locked On Browns YouTube channel. Again, join that Everydayer Club if you're somebody who wants to go ad-free and you enjoy listening to the show each and every single day. You can get Locked On Browns plus members-only Discord access and more. Just go to lockedonbrowns.supercast.com. You can also check out the link in the show notes to learn more. For those of you on video, we send you the first ever 24/7 National NBA YouTube channel on audio. Make sure you make your second listen Locked On NFL. You can also keep it local. Check out Locked On Cavs or Locked On Guardians. Thank you for being every day at the Locked On Podcast Network. I will talk to you again with Lance Reisland in our next episode. See you then.